So many people have asked me, Anush, how did you manage to become fluent in 4 languages? I can barely speak English. Or maybe they'll say, I can only speak English and Spanish, or some other second language, and nothing more. Do you feel confused with all those languages in your head? How do you separate them and not think so much? These are interesting questions that I have not really thought much about because the way I learned these languages made it unnecessary for me to ask them. But once I was asked these things, I couldn't really ignore them. But let me explain my answers to the following questions in a clear and straightforward manner, starting with the first one. How did I manage to learn and be fluent in 4 languages? The answer is simple: immersion. This is both the easiest and most difficult way to do things, depending on how it's done. I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and at home we spoke Assyrian. I spoke 2 dialects: my dad's Eastern Assyrian dialect and my mom's Chaldean dialect. Some people consider them 2 different languages, but in reality, they're not. The difference between them is the same as the difference between English from England and English from America. The second language I learned was Arabic, which makes sense given how that is the predominant language in Iraq and in Jordan, where I later immigrated and went to elementary school. In 2001, at 13 years of age, I immigrated to the United States and learned English here via immersion again. I had an Egyptian woman translate for me and my brother, but after 6 months, I didn't need her anymore. So all 3 of these I learned via immersion, but Spanish is a bit different. While I grew up listening to a lot of Spanish being spoken around me, I didn't pick it up because I didn't really make an effort to study it, nor did I have much of a reason to learn it since English was sufficient. However, my ear did get accustomed to the way it sounds, and in 2014, I began to study Spanish slowly but consistently. After hand copying 5 full short story books in Spanish, I noticed my comprehension was very good, but my speaking abilities not as much yet. It was not until 2022 that I became comfortable in Spanish, with some struggle with grammar, and technically fluent in the language. Now, let me talk about whether I feel confused with all those languages in my head, and how I keep them separate. This question comes with a certain assumption, namely that you can only learn one thing, in this case 1 language, in order to function properly and not get confused or overwhelmed. This idea is silly because if we look at our own lives, we have knowledge about so many different topics, and every single day we are learning more and more. Do we ever stop and ask ourselves, maybe I shouldn't be learning this many things in my life, otherwise I'll get confused? Definitely not, because the question makes no sense. You can't stop the brain from learning new things. It needs to do that in order to stay alive and not degenerate and become obsolete. Also, once you're able to become fluent in a second language, the third becomes a bit easier to learn, mainly because you become more proficient in understanding language structure and how it works. This skill helps you to streamline your learning process and acquire the third language more quickly and efficiently. It also depends on the language, of course, because if you learn Spanish and now you want to learn Mandarin Chinese or Arabic, then it's obviously going to take longer because these 2 languages are completely different from Spanish. But the underlying idea remains. You will have a better strategy on how to tackle these languages, and you won't be as confused or frustrated by tough grammatical rules and long and complex sentences. On the contrary, all of this will become fun instead of a pain. At the end of the day, knowing 4 languages fluently has opened up so many opportunities for me to talk to and get to know people who I've otherwise would never have talked to or gotten to know. I also noticed a change in my personality depending on which language I'm speaking. With English, I feel less emotional and more dry and analytical. With Spanish, I feel more outgoing and emotionally expressive. The same is true with Arabic and Assyrian, with the difference being my voice being a bit deeper in those languages, along with more intensity in my speech. Either way, I love being able to speak these languages, and my goal is to someday raise my three languages, Arabic, Assyrian, and Spanish, into the C2 level, same as English. I also hope to one day learn more languages, but I'm not so desperate or motivated to push myself to C2 in them. Though, of course, if I happen to reach that level in those languages, I won't complain. Ultimately, I learn languages so I can connect with people, and I have no regrets about it. You should try it out if you're curious. You won't regret it either. So that's it for this video. If you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share to get notified about more videos like this one. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.